Hello and welcome to Issues and Insights. I'm Jarrett Cox and thank you so much for joining us. Today is a very special and different episode than what we normally do because this is September and September is Suicide Awareness Month. If you're struggling and are contemplating suicide, please call the suicide hotline at 988 or text TALK to 741-741. The world is a much better place with you in it. So one of the reasons that we're talking about this month, because it is such an important cause, but there's a great event that's happening in Elizabethtown about suicide awareness, and we have Jake Richardson with the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention here.
Hi, how you doing?
Doing great. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
To give a little bit of inside baseball, normally when you see me here in the host chair, I'm not here. I don't schedule myself for these things. Usually something happens, there's a scheduling conflict. This is the first time that I've ever actually scheduled myself to host one of these, and that's because this is an important topic for me, and the walk is something that I've been involved in every year that has happened in person. And this is the fourth walk and the third in person.
We first started it up in 2020, which, a lot of things had to be changed around for numerous reasons.
Oh yeah.
But ever since then, we've been walking in person. It's been an event that's gotten bigger and more wonderful every year, and it's something that I'm very happy to be the walk chair for.
You throw such a great event. Samantha McKenzie, who could not be here, even though I tried to bribe her with Diet Mountain Dew. I'm sure she'll see this afterwards, but she got me involved in that from my time at ECTC, and it is just such a great event, and I am so happy to be a part of it, and I'm so glad to have you on the program to talk a little bit about it.
Oh, I'm glad to be here. I appreciate you giving me the time.
Absolutely. So this is the third in-person walk, and it is Saturday, September the 16th.
Yep, at Central Hardin High School.
So can you talk a little bit about how this all started?
Well, it goes as far back as 2014. For those who don't know, the Out of the Darkness Walk is AFSP, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention's biggest fundraising event throughout the year. And there are several walks in different cities all across the state. Back in 2014, I had, just come off of leaving high school, where I first started having trouble with my own mental health. And I discovered the Out of the Darkness Walk that was taking place in Louisville that year. I went to the event, and it was unlike anything I'd ever seen before. The image that perseveres in my mind, and something that I always bring up whenever something like this comes along, is the image of over 100 people in front of me, over 100 people behind me, all while we started walking, knowing that we were all there for the same reason. So after that event, I thought to myself, well, why can't I do something like that? It took several years to kind of get the ball rolling. I didn't move to Elizabethtown itself until 2016. But in 2019, I finally got in touch with the area director, the former area director now, Megan Cole, who just let me take the ball and run with it. She said, if this is something we want to do, let's do it. So in 2020, boom, we had it. We had an event. It was something that was very important to me and very near and dear to my heart, obviously because of my own experience, but also because there's still, to this day, such a stigma around suicide, mental health in general. And something that I really try and just hammer home is having a community that's not just smarter about mental health and suicide prevention, but is understanding to it. Because there are still so many things that people can't quite grasp it, or they don't understand it, and it's okay not to understand it. But that's why we have these events. So people who are affected by suicide, and a lot of people are in various ways affected by suicide, and those people who don't quite grasp it can come to one of these events and hopefully understand it a little bit better. Having that community around someone, it can make all the difference. Because I know I'm rambling here, I apologize. But whenever I was a teenager who was struggling with his mental health but didn't understand it still. There was this feeling that I was going through it by myself, that I was sort of a man on an island and everyone was just kind of watching from the outside while I experienced this. And going to the walk in 2014 in Louisville showed me that's not the case. There are legions of people, of communities who understand what you're going through. And there are organizations like AFSP who can try and direct you towards getting help that you need or getting resources to help yourself. So it's been a very near and dear cause to my heart for a long time, and I'm so proud of the work that the walk in Elizabethtown has done so far.
You know, of course, I love Samantha McKenzie to death. I do just about anything. She's the only person I would get up that early on a Saturday morning to do something for free for. But one of the reasons why this is important to me is I've had my own struggles for a number of years, and there have been times that I've been in very dark places. And it's taken COVID really for a lot of people to grasp the fact that, you know, it's okay to reach out and get help. Mm-hmm. It's okay to see a therapist. It's okay. And it's still a struggle for me a lot of times. I'm just now getting on antidepressants and medication to help me, help with my urges and some of the struggles that I'm having. And I hope that somebody watching this feels like they're not on that island, mm-hmm. that, you know, every day may not be sunshine and rainbows. And that's okay. But the days that you're struggling, it's okay to reach out and get help.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, I've had the pleasure of doing a lot of public speaking engagements as part of my role with AFSP, both things like this mm-hmm. or talking to health classes at high schools or anything like that. And I often say that one of the only good things that came out of the COVID-19 pandemic was the bringing forward mental health. Bringing it to the forefront and having more people not just experience their own version of it, but being willing to talk about it. Because, you know, talking about it's how we help understand it.
No, absolutely. I mean, if you don't talk about it, you don't deal with it. If you don't deal with it, you know, who knows what might happen. Some of the statistics that I was looking up in preparation for this, suicide is the 11th leading cause of death in the U.S. In 2021, we lost 48,185 people to suicide. And in 2021, there were 1.7 million suicide attempts. Mm-hmm. I don't think people grasp, even to this day, how big that is and how much people need, I don't want to say that confirmation, but just that kind of nudge to reach out and get help.
Mm-hmm. And to sort of build off of that, to narrow the demographic even more, I do a lot of work with teenagers. I'm a youth peer support specialist as my day job, which means I use my lived experience to try and help younger folks who are experiencing their own troubles. In terms of suicide, the third leading cause of death for teenagers and young folks 10 to 18 is suicide. It's the third leading cause of death. In Kentucky, it's number 2. So to narrow those demographics, you know, it's affecting everyone, not just folks who've been around the block once or twice. It's young folks too. And I think that goes to show that there are so many ways all of us are connected in one way or another to mental health or suicide.
And me and my struggles with suicide, that's not something that I share out very often. To narrow that down even more, there's one suicide attempt among the LGBTQ youth every 45 seconds.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, statistics show that LGBTQ plus youth are 4 times more likely to die by suicide than their peers are.
And when you really think about how people at that age, they're not out, they're kind of thinking about, is it safe to come out? You know, is this really who I am? For them to have these struggles at such a higher rate, mm-hmm. you know that they're not likely to reach out for that help.
Mm-hmm. And like I said before, it's very easy to have that person on an island kind of feeling whenever you're dealing with those kinds of things. And that's where my work with AFSP has come in so handy for me. On the AFSP site, which is afsp.org, there are numerous resources, programs, like there are all sorts of things for every demographic, LGBTQ plus youth, veterans, all sorts of different demographics who experience mental health and suicide prevention in their own way. There are resources for everybody.
And especially the veterans. We have such a large veteran population, and I know that a lot of people, especially among them, they go into the Army and they've seen things, and I would imagine it would be hard for them to kind of go and relive all of that to a therapist. So it's so important to remember our veterans when we're talking about suicide awareness.
Absolutely. I I tend to get a little long-winded when I talk about this kind of thing, so I apologize ahead of time. But everyone experiences healing and recovery in their own way, and that's something I really try and get across, especially when I'm talking to young folks, because younger people have this idea of, okay, I need to be this by this time, and older folks do as well. But there is no timetable for recovery. There's no timetable for someone to heal. Healing happens at our own pace. And for a lot of people, coming to the Out of the Darkness walk is a huge step. And for sometimes it's a step that's a step too far for some folks. And there's no problem with that. But for anyone who is wishing to come to the event and is sort of on the fence, I've never experienced a more welcoming event in my entire life. Like I sort of mentioned earlier, there's a bunch of people there, all there for the same reason. It's because they've all been affected and touched by this certain specific thing. It's people who understand, people who aren't going to judge you for being there. And that's, I feel like having that welcoming, understanding community goes such a long way in people being willing to discuss their own experiences.
And I think not only that, but seeing people there that that you may not know have been touched by suicide in some way, somebody that is struggling themselves, or people that have overcome some of their struggles, or people that have lost loved ones. I think it's so important for people to go and to say, hey, I know that person. I feel safe, or you being able to empathize with them more, knowing what they have gone through. And some of the people that I have met working with the Out of the Darkness walk, people that I've met at these events, it is so touching to not only hear their stories, but just to be able, to talk to them about your struggles, and just that warm, welcoming atmosphere. Just the safety. It's like a giant safety blanket, and it's such a great experience. It's something that I'm so glad that I went to. Something I'm so glad that I'm involved in, and honestly, one of the things that I'm most proud to work on. And it does so much good. A lot of the funds that the Out of the Darkness walks collect go back to the organization. Towards programs, towards research. It all goes to help fight suicide and bring hope to those who are affected by it. And not only that, but the hotline, the text line, they run 24/7. Of course, the suicide hotline 988 or text talk to 741-741. They operate 24/7. They have to have people there, train people to operate those and to help people with struggles. That's not cheap. No,
not at all. And I don't want to get too political here, but there's current attempts to up the funding for 988 to make sure that we have that local response to help folks where they are from people in their state. Even better if it's closer than that.
And it's so important to have that personal touch, because especially, we see a lot about these mass shootings and those mass shootings all the time. Having someone in that area is so important to the recovery process, because they may have a better feeling of the mood in the area. They may be able to better understand and empathize with somebody than me calling a hotline and getting somebody in Canada or somebody in Washington State.
And that's a lot of the reason that we're trying to push that extended funding forward is, if you're in Kentucky, you pick up the phone, you're struggling, you're in a bad place, you call someone, you wind up with someone in North Carolina. What's that going to do for you? Obviously it's someone there to listen, but in terms of mobile crisis units or anything like that, that person in North Carolina is not going to know what to do for you. So that's a big reason we're asking for that extra funding, is to get that local, like I said, that local response, to make sure that folks are getting what they need, where they need it.
And there's so many people out there that want to help, and having somebody local, they may be a therapist or a doctor that they know of. If the person is in danger of being evicted or something, they may be able to know the people to reach out to help them get, a bed to sleep on that night.
And you're mentioning all these things, and I'm glad you're doing it, because something that we stress with AFSP is that there's not a singular reason for someone to die by suicide. Everyone has these gathering effects that affect them and eventually can overwhelm them. And I think that's why talking about the experience is so important. Because in that moment, it's hard to tell if they feel like they're alone, if anything like that. And that community, the one that I've tried very, very hard to cultivate here, and one that already exists in Louisville and these other places that have had this walk for 10 plus years, there's a community there. And community is so huge. And I've said community for years now, because that's, fundraising is important, and it's the main purpose of why the Out of the Darkness Walk exists. But I feel like, for me personally, the idea of creating that community and having that community that understands, who is smart about mental health, that's just as important to me. There's a financial standpoint, there's also a personal standpoint. It's I don't know where I was going with that.
One of the things that I've taken to heart over the years, there's the old saying, blood is thicker than water, but that's actually not the whole saying. It's the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the room, and I actually keep that on a card in my wallet to remind me that the friends that I make by choice, those bonds are stronger than familiar ties. And it took years for me to come to terms with my struggles, because I didn't have that community. I didn't have that friend group. I didn't have that till college. Getting involved in student government in college, I met friends, and I started to realize what I was missing. Before that point, I don't know if I would have been able to go and tell somebody why I was struggling, because there was a piece of me that was missing, and it was that community, having those friends that they may not have known that I was struggling, but I felt safe enough around them that if I was struggling at that moment, I would feel safe telling them that.
And like I alluded to earlier, there are people who come to the walk who are in all different stages of their recovery, of their understanding. Whether they have lost someone, whether they have struggled themselves, there are people who are there in all different stages of this. And I've met people at these walks who have created organizations of their own to honor a loved one, or to help with the cause themselves.
And one of the things that I love about the walk is people can form a team, and a lot of them do it in memory of a loved one.
Absolutely. One of the biggest teams we had last year, and probably this year as well, there is Lincoln Trails Behavioral Health Department, who forms a massive team, has the last couple of years. They make their own shirts. They come en masse to the walk, and I think that's just a testament to what we strive to do. if you go on to afsp.org/Elizabethtown, which is the personal walk page, first of all, you can donate, register, join a team there, but you can also see lists of the teams that we already have. And there are teams who show up every year. There are new teams that get added every year. And the continual progression and the progression of the walk it's been wonderful to see.
And that's why I would encourage everyone to go, especially if you're struggling or if you've had a loved one that has lost their life to suicide, because it's important to not only be out there and as part of the healing process, but it's important to let people know that you've had these struggles or you've lost someone to this. It's important because we don't have, COVID has helped a lot with this. It's one of the only good things that came out of the pandemic, but we still have not had a reckoning as a society about how suicide touches everyone.
And it's still because there's that stigma around it. But as I tend to tell high schoolers and things when I talk to them, I credit that generation so much with the work to eliminate that sort of stigma.
The youth will save us.
Absolutely. Kids are strong. Kids are resilient. But they need help just like the rest of us.
I mean, look at what they've lived through.
Absolutely. And we're making such extraordinary progress. I've said, it's been 10 plus years since I first started having my own struggles and having to go to the hospital and everything like that. And we have come such a long way just in those 10 years in terms of how we talk about it, how often we talk about it, and with the kindness that we talk about it with. And there's still room to grow, but the fact that we've come as far as we have is a testament in of itself.
In events like this, give people the opportunity to learn and grow, to be able to talk to people who have maybe been in the same boat that they've been in before, had those same struggles, and having friends that have had the same struggles that I have has really helped me grow and kind of better understand things. And the Out of the Darkness Walk, the one in Elizabethtown, is taking place Saturday, September 16th. Check-in starts at 9. The event starts at 10. Yep. It's going to be at the Central Hardin track field?
Yep, down by the football field, yep. I'm still sort of working out details on parking because if anyone who is in Elizabethtown knows, there's a lot of construction happening at Central Hardin right now. But once those details are there, I will be posting that on the walk page as well as the event page for the walk on social media.
And like I said, it's been a great event. I'm so happy to have been involved with it every year that it's happened in person. I'm looking forward to being a part of it this year and helping out in any way that I can. And I think one of the most important things, even if you don't necessarily want to walk, is to just show up and show your support.
Absolutely. And we welcome anyone, regardless of where you are in your personal recovery or anything like that. Donations are not required by any stretch of the imagination. We and I am just happy to have you there. To have you there to experience what I experienced all those years ago. And it's a wonderful event that I wish everyone would experience.
As somebody that, like I said, has been involved with it for the last 3 years that it's taken place in person, it is just such a moving event. Hearing people in their stories, seeing people that you may not have known have gone through the same struggles that you have. And it also doesn't matter where you're from. I mean, I drive up from Cabron to go to this. Yeah. People come down from Louisville to go to this, and they go to multiple walks and support all these communities. And it is a giant community that's being built.
And I mean, there are people who I've spoken to from as far as LaGrange who are planning on coming to the Elizabethtown event. It's we're still a fraction of the population that the Louisville Walk is, but it's still something. It's something to behold.
And it's something that everyone watching here can help build Saturday, September 16th, check-in at 9, event starts at 10 at the Central Hardin track field. Jake, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you so much for watching. If you're struggling, please call the suicide hotline at 988 or text TALK to 741-741, or reach out to a friend, a loved one, a teacher, a counselor, anybody that you trust, because the world is a much better place with you in it. Thank you for watching. For HCEC-TV, I'm Jarrett Cox, and hopefully I'll catch you down the road.